Kapowians! It's a brand new day here at Kings Comics, and we have a brand new episode of Kapow ready and waiting for your eager eyeballs and earballs. I'm Sonia.
And I'm Al, and today we're doing something a little bit different.
Apart from your haircut?
Absolutely apart from that. Thank you for noticing.
You're welcome.
Today we're having a look at comics and graphic novels for younger readers, or just for the young at heart.
Or in your case, the young at brain.
What?
Nothing. We'll be taking a look at the first volumes of Amulet, Rust, and Super Dinosaur.
Which, incidentally, features a T-Rex with a rocket launcher.
Yep.
So, you know what? You can tick that off your list of awesome things to see before I die. Also, Ray will be along to have a look at Bodacious Space Pirates.
Indeed. Plus, we will be announcing a new competition at the end of the show, so make sure you stick around.
Yeah, and don't think you can just jump to the end and look for it there, because we'll know.
How will we know that?
Wait, what did you say about my brain before?
Nothing.
The first thing that struck me about The Stonekeeper, the first book in the Amulet series, was that it shares almost exactly the same setup as Joe Hill's Lock and Key. After a family tragedy, two kids, Emily and Navin, move to an old house with their mother, where they discover magic, danger, and a host of secrets tied up in their family's history.
The similarities end there, though, considering how this is a book aimed at younger readers.
Yeah, Lock and Key, not so much.
No, not really. Now, the first day that you move into a new home, you generally unpack a few things, have a bit of a nosy about, and then get to bed early. But on Emily's first day in her new house, she discovers a magical amulet, her mother gets kidnapped by a horrible monster in the basement, and she stumbles upon a doorway that leads to a whole different world.
It is then, of course, up to Emily, her brother, and her new magical accessory to rescue their mother and find a way home. They are assisted by some robots, one of which looks like a stuffed bunny for some reason, and hindered by monsters, giant tentacles, and an evil elf.
So as you can see, there are some dark and creepy elements to this story that keeps it interesting and gives a genuine menace to the book. There are also some really great moments in the artwork, especially when it comes to the monsters or when Emily starts using the powers of the amulet.
I've got to say though, my main beef with this book was to do with the artwork. I mean, although I agree that the monsters look great, especially when that slime beast attacks the first time in the basement.
That's scary.
Super creepy. But I was less impressed by the faces of the main characters. In comparison to the lush world around them, Emily and Navin's faces are almost interchangeable and oddly blank. Their mother would have exactly the same face if her head wasn't shaped like a giant tic-tac.
It's possible that creator Kazu Kibuishi was underlining the fact that they don't belong in this world by making them look so different. But I agree that making them just look a little less interesting than the world around them may not have been the best way to go. My biggest issue was actually with the story itself. It seemed a little chaotic, and I feel like it needed a stronger story structure, just a little bit tighter. Needless to say though, this does have a good momentum and it will carry the reader through. I'm gonna give this one a borrow.
Fair enough. Well look, my misgivings about character faces aside, I did find the story more and more compelling the further I got in, and I think there's plenty there that will enthrall a younger reader.
Yeah.
I also really like the fact that the main protagonist is female.
Always good to see.
That is, isn't it? So I'm going to give this one a buy.
It's not common to see a writer who generally works on adult titles delving into the world of comics for younger readers, especially when that writer is known for writing one of the most gruesome comics on the planet. But that is exactly what we get with Robert Kirkman's series, Super Dinosaur.
It's an unashamedly silly story that revolves around a 10-year-old super genius called Derek Dynamo, who fights against a group of evil dino men led by the villainous Max Maximus, along with his best friend, who is a talking Tyrannosaurus Rex who has massive robot arms with rocket launcher attachments.
You almost seem down on all this silliness.
Well, maybe I am just a little bit. Look, I was completely on board to start with. I was digging the funny names like Triceratops and Pterodactyl and Brachiosaurus. That was a good one.
That was awesome.
I was digging the constantly expanding dinosaur armory. I was even on board with Derek's constant overuse of the word awesome. But in the end, I just wanted this to be more than just a series of fights with increasingly large dinosaurs and increasingly complicated suits of armor.
Well, I think there is more to it than that. The fact that Super Dinosaur can speak makes him more than just an interesting pet. He's quite a complicated character with his own hopes and fears. There are a number of different factions, all of whom have their own plans in play. And there's a bunch of bombshells dropped in this first volume that really shake up this story.
I know, and I don't want to come across as if I didn't like this book. I mean, Kirkman certainly has created a cast of endearing characters, and Jason Howard does an excellent job on all the different Dino Men, and the detail of the armors can easily rival any of the currently running Iron Man books. I don't know, I just felt like this book could have just been a little bit smarter.
Oh, look, personally, I got a lot out of this. Look, this is a title for a younger reader, but it's a lot of fun and there's a great sense of humour running through it. I certainly giggled all the way through.
Yeah.
There's nothing dark or disturbing about anything that goes on in here, and sometimes that's really nice, especially if you're looking for a book for a younger reader. I'm going to give this one a buy.
Fair enough. Look, I think there's definitely a market for this sort of story. In fact, I wouldn't be at all surprised if it got franchised out into a cartoon series sometime in the future.
I would watch that Saturday mornings.
I would too. Look, if it seems like I'm being a bit negative on this one, it's only because I saw a potential in it that it didn't quite live up to. I mean, I am still going to give it a borrow.
Awesome.
Again with the awesome.
So Ray, what's the all-ages anime that you've brought along for us?
Maretsu Pirates, or Bodacious Space Pirates in the West.
It sounds like Bill and Ted's Space Adventure.
Yeah, it does a bit, doesn't it? But it centers around a spirited high school girl named Marika. She's a member of the Space Yacht Club and has a part-time job at a high-class retro cafe. One day, two strangers suddenly appear and claim to be subordinates of her dead father. They demand that she assume command of the space pirate ship Benton Maru because according to a compact made during a war of independence a century ago, the ship must be inherited by the captain's next direct descendant. So begins Marika's new life as a space pirate. Well, I picked this up thinking it could be a female equivalent of a One Piece, but instead of the high seas, we've got endless space.
It's not really like One Piece though, is it? It doesn't have that kind of wacky sense of humour.
No, and it's not quite the same action-adventure either. Even though it is funny in places, the dialogue is really good.
Yeah.
It seems quite natural from all the characters, even through some of the heavier technological jargon, which can get quite dense at times. And I didn't think that Marika's use of all this aeronautical terminology was odd, did you?
No, not at all, but I think that's because the future world is constructed so well.
Yes, I thought so too. The social structures in this world are really concrete. I believe the technological advancements, the vehicles and ships, I get a sense of governmental policy, of a rich world that everyone else exists and functions within, and that we're merely magnifying one aspect, that of pirating. Now, when I say pirating, they're not doing anything illegal. Consider them more as sanctioned privateers who carry a letter given to them by the government, and it's called the Letter of Marque, and this enables them to rob others. Legally. Which they willingly accept.
Yeah.
To be robbed. Bodacious Space Pirates covers some new ground thematically, and it looks impressive.
Yeah, the animation is clean and smooth. I liked a lot of the movement through space. The anime flicks between cell shading and 3D modelling quite a bit. While both look good, it can sometimes be a little jarring.
Yeah, I agree. But the ships look pretty awesome. The action, however, is nothing to write home about. But what did you think of the characters and the design?
I found many of the girls in the Space Yacht Club all kind of blended into one another.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other characters were quite underused. Aside from Marika, who is a kick-ass, take-charge kind of gal, only Chiaki is of interest. Her cool demeanour and excellent skill set is enticing, and she reminds me of those kids who always acted like a grown-up. She's the total opposite of Marika, and they have a great chemistry between them.
Yeah, she's very cute. I was a little disappointed too by the supporting characters, some of which looked really interesting, especially some of the pirates, and yet I don't know anything about them. They could have been fleshed out a whole lot more. I felt like I was given this awesome cake, but I was told I wasn't allowed to eat the best parts.
Now, I can understand what you're saying, weirdly. I was kind of expecting a Robin Hood space quest, but it was all a little bit too nice. I mean, where was the piracy? It didn't come in at all.
That's right.
And all the things that came up were really easily overcome.
Yeah, I liked how they chose to test or wean Marika into her role as captain, but the series needed to be cut back and cleaned up and pumped up. It had a great retro vibe to it, but music and sound were nothing exceptional. The main theme is good. Look, a lot of our younger viewers are probably going to get into this initially, but I don't think it's going to hold their interest over time. when the story does develop, it is magnetic because there's so many details in there. It's a really rich base, but I think they fail to execute it. If I could just grab this script and stretch it out on a long table, I would take to it like a maniacal Edward Scissorhands. That's what it needs, to just be compressed. Look, bodacious potential, but I'm gonna have to give it a berry.
Aw. Well, look, I really enjoyed this. It is slow to begin with, I will give it that, but do persevere because it's quite a nice story and it's kind of refreshing to watch this sci-fi quirky drama.
Yep.
I enjoyed the various blips and tweaks of the navigational and defensive equipment, but I never felt like our heroines were ever in serious danger.
No.
There is a film in development to be released in 2014, so maybe that's where we get to see some bodacious space pirating.
Hopefully.
I hope so, it'll be really cool. Look,
Yeah.
this is kind of light-hearted, it's a bit fluffy, and it's not going to appeal to everyone, so I'm going to give this one a borrow. I liked it.
Do you know what sound a bodacious space pirate makes?
I have a fear that you're going to tell me, Ray. Yeah, no, I get it. You're in space, so no one can hear you. R. I think there's an important difference between comic titles for young readers and comic titles for all ages, but they both have a very important place on our shelves. Royden Lepp's Rust series falls into that second category.
Yeah, it's kid-friendly in that it doesn't get too violent or too complicated, but it's textured enough, it's mysterious enough, and it's referential enough to real-world conflicts that there's something there for older readers as well.
Yeah, Volume 1 of Rust, Visitor in the Field, is set in a world very similar to our own. 40 or 50 years on from a major war which is shrouded in mystery. We know that mankind invented robots to fight the war for them, and there's a sense that the project went horribly wrong, as these plans often do.
Yeah, don't they? I really like how Lepp keeps his cards so close to his chest on this one. I mean, this massive war is very much kept as a shadowy background to the trials of a farming family called the Taylors, and of a young boy with a jetpack called Jet.
Which makes sense, really.
Yeah. Now, Jet has more secrets going on than anyone else in this story. He arrives explosively on the scene by flying through a barn with a killer robot chasing him, and then decides to stick around. He seems helpful, diligent, and friendly, but he also claims to have been involved in the war that took place decades before, despite appearing to be no more than 12 years old.
So yeah, this book has mystery going on in spades and a sense of creeping dread that the bad decisions of yesteryear are coming back to haunt humanity. Now honestly, not a huge amount happens in this first volume. It's mostly about setting up characters like Roman, who is kind of the focus of the story, and he reveals so much about himself without it ever feeling like clumsy exposition. It's also measured and precise. Dialogue is kept to a minimum, and Lepp's art truly shines.
Yeah, look, I was worried about the sepia style to start with. I thought it might get a bit drab after a while, but it really works so well for the type of story that's being told here.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read the next one and start unraveling all of these revelations that are hinted at in this first book. It's definitely a buy from me.
Great. Yeah, Rust is truly a marvellous all-ages title that's going to keep every type of reader interested. Great economy of story and slow-burning character development all adds to this. It's definitely a buy from me as well.
And that, as they say, is the end of this episode of Kapow.
As they say, who says that?
We do?
Yeah, okay, no, I'll give you that one. Now, at the start, we said that we had a competition to announce, and it is time.
Yes, and don't think I didn't see you jumping to the end.
Who are you talking to?
Oh, he knows.
Seriously, you are getting as weird as Ray. You two got to stop hanging out.
I know, right? Yeah.
Now, we decided to announce another competition when we were rummaging around the things we haven't read yet. And we found a complete collection of this year's free Comic Book Day comics thanks to Kings Comics.
So, being the generous folk we are, we've decided to give them away to a lucky Kapowian. And all you have to do is answer me these questions 3.
It's just one question.
It's question 1, that's right.
Question. So we think the best thing about Free Comic Book Day is how it introduces new people to the wonderful world of comics. So what we want to know is your first comic. If you remember the series, brilliant. If you remember the issue number,
Ooh, yeah.
even better.
Bonus points for that. So you can answer on Facebook, on Twitter, even in the YouTube comments. But remember that you have to get it in before our 50th episode. That's when we'll be announcing the winner.
Indeed, and while you're remembering things, remember to pop on over to sftv.com.au where we review The Green Team and Half Past Danger.
Such an awesome title.
It is, isn't it?
So until next week, guys.
Bye.